Could Tennessee actually get kicked out of the SEC? Well, we're going to talk about it with someone who knows all the nuts and bolts about this story and is going to tell us either the media is absolutely crazy or there's actually some legs to the story. Right here next on the College Huddle. And joining me live now, my good friend Michael Allen from the Fanatics Show. Michael, welcome back to the College Huddle. It's been a few weeks, brother.
It has been. Appreciate you having me back on. I always enjoy coming on and talking to you no matter what the topic is. It's always a fun time when we get together.
It is, and I tell you, Michael, when you first joined, you were episode number 1 of the College Huddle, and here we are. We're celebrating reaching 100 subscribers, and you're back. So maybe we can have some more of that good luck here as we march towards number 200 subscribers here at the College Huddle. Which reminds me, if you're watching this, subscribe. Do it right now. Hit the button. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything, whether you like Tennessee or not. You can subscribe to this channel because we're going to talk about college football year-round here at the College Huddle, including, Michael, this most recent story that has come out. And I'm going to just kind of give an overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to you and let you dive into it. There is a significant possibility of Tennessee leaving the SEC, but not necessarily in the way many are speculating. The situation involves a new Tennessee state law regarding player compensation and the Power Conference's efforts to enforce new NCAA rules. Tennessee's law, designed to protect universities from lawsuits, could be at odds with the SEC's potential new enforcement agreement. If Tennessee chooses to prioritize state law over the SEC's rules, it could face consequences, including potential expulsion. This seems wild and crazy and just not true, but yet everybody's reporting on it.
So before we actually deep dive into this, why would it not be Tennessee that would be at the forefront of this? I mean, you look at NIL, whenever all of it started getting crazy, they were at the forefront of, giving millions of dollars to athletes out of high school. You had the lawsuit with Nico that eventually made it, quote unquote, the wild, wild west when it comes to giving out tons of money to high school athletes, as well as other athletes that were already in college. So why would Tennessee not be at the forefront of another situation that has to do with NIL like this?
Now, and what's crazy about it, Michael, is the last time we recorded, Nico was asking for more money, and Tennessee said no dice, bro.
Exactly. So it's crazy how it kind of goes full circle with NIL. But yeah, so those, Eric pretty much outlined the whole thing that Tennessee did pass a law. Governor, I can't even think what our governor's name is right off the top of my head. Governor Bill Lee. Sorry for that. He signed his name to a law that, as Eric said, basically NIL goes screw yourself. Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Memphis, all the state schools, they are allowed to spend whatever they want on NIL, and no law that the SEC passes, that the NCAA passes, anything like that can say otherwise. Now, the proposed law that all the power conferences have come in has not been signed yet, but as Eric said, it is a possibility of expulsion from the conference. Now, I have it from some different Knoxville radio stations, and most of them are very, very reliable sources. That Danny White, as good as he is as an athletic director, and being on top of a lot of the new stuff that rolls into college football, college athletics as a whole, he did not want this law to pass until there was some sort of official law that the NCAA passed, that the SEC passed, whatever that may be. And I think he was going to work with the state of Tennessee to try to have a law that protected Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Memphis, all the state schools for this stuff, but not necessarily to the extent that they did it right now. So could this happen? Could Tennessee just go, you know, way on out there and try to do their own thing and maybe get kicked out of the SEC? Yeah, there's a possibility. But with how smart Danny White is, and really all the higher ups at Tennessee, you got President Boyd. He's very good as well. Um, I believe that they're going to follow whatever it is at the SEC, Big Ten, because they're at the forefront of all of this. Whatever they decide to go with is what they're going to follow. But it does make for a good news story to see something like this, and just to see that politicians in general are now trying to get into all this, not only to protect the schools, but to try to build up their state's athletic programs and academic programs in general.
I can't imagine a world, Michael, with the SEC without Tennessee in it.
And that's kind of where I'm at too. Obviously Tennessee until recently, they've been in some dark times when it comes to football, but you look at the storied history of Tennessee football, basketball has come around. Women's basketball has been at the forefront pretty much ever since women's basketball became popular. It's been them and then Notre Dame, or not Notre Dame, Connecticut. And then, as of recently, it's gone over to schools like South Carolina, LSU, things like that. And then softball has been at the forefront, and baseball, they've always been a pretty decent team, but as of the last few years, they've been at the forefront of college baseball. And the SEC was officially founded in Knoxville, Tennessee. So I completely agree with you. I don't see the SEC moving forward without Tennessee in it. But, once again, it makes for good talking points.
Yeah, I think I think that one of the reasons why this story actually has legs. There's actually two reasons, but one of them is because of all the conference realignment that
Yes.
I mean, we look back 10 years ago and it would have been like, there ain't no way you would see Oregon, USC, UCLA, and Washington in the Big Ten. But yet here we are. There's no way you would see Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC. But yet here we are. And it appears that, these conferences aren't done with the power grabs when it comes to building up their brands in order to appease television markets and revenue streams coming from those television markets. So when you hear something like this, I think it's easy to just kind of blow it off, but then at the same time you think, right, we are in such a crazy time in college athletics. Maybe there's something to this. And so I think that's one of the reasons why this story actually might have some legs. And of course, the other aspect of this is the whole NIL argument, Michael. We are in an arms race. There's no doubt about it. Ohio State was labeled as buying a championship in 2024 because they had a $20 million roster. Now, most of that money was spent on retaining the majority of that roster that they had that usually would have left after their third year and went to the NFL, but they came back and ran it back for one more year. And so, a large portion of that 20 million went to retaining the roster, but yet it was still 20 million. And now this year, there's reports that Texas has an NIL deal in place with their current roster in 2025, doubling Ohio State's from last year to 40 million invested in their roster this year. So NIL is not going away. It's just it's who's willing to spend the most on their roster in order to be the most competitive that season in their minds. And so I feel like a lot of what Tennessee's doing here is saying, look, we want to be competitive. We're telling you, the fans there in Knoxville, that we're doing everything in our power to compete with Ohio State, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Notre Dame. We're going to do everything in our power financially to make sure we are competitive in getting to that college football playoff. I don't necessarily think that we're not going to follow the rules set forth by the conferences is what Tennessee's necessarily going after here.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't pull up the exact article right now, but it's kind of going a little bit off topic, but still talking about spending all this money on NIL. I actually listened to a radio program out of Knoxville yesterday of some of the top schools um, in the nation last year as far as spending money on NIL for their programs, and what their success actually came out to be after spending all that money. Obviously, Ohio State was number one. They won the national championship. Texas was pretty close. I believe they were second or third on the list. Obviously, they made the semifinals. But some other names on that list. You had Auburn was on the list. I believe it was a top 10 list. Auburn was on that list. Barely 6-6. You had Michigan on that list. Were they a 7-5 program last year?
Mm-hmm.
You had, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Penn State was on that list. Made the semifinals. Nebraska was on that list. 6-6, 7-5 program, something like that. Maybe 8-4. Texas A&M, an 8-4 program from last year. Georgia made the college football playoffs, got put out in the quarterfinals. Alabama, just shy of the playoffs last year. So spending all this money doesn't always add up to those wins. It's what you do with the people that are there and the staff around them. So I do believe I'm a firm believer that there does need to be laws in place for this, but is it really going to matter if you have a certain amount of money that you spend, or even if you don't have a certain amount of money, you can spend all the money in the world and you don't win anything? So that's kind of where I'm at with this is, I do believe, and I've said it already, that Tennessee is going to follow whatever rules come into place from the conference, from the NCAA, whatever it may be. But, you know, the fact that we're having this conversation is it's just crazy. It's a great talking point. But it's something that's not just going to be solved just at the snap of a finger with something like this law that Tennessee passed.
Yeah, exactly. And just because the law might be there in favor of Tennessee doesn't mean that Tennessee's going to all of a sudden spend more than what the conference says you're allotted to, right? Which
Exactly.
I listened to every school you just listed there from 2024's NIL spending, and I didn't hear Tennessee on that list, which tells me
Well, Tennessee was on that list. I just forgot to mention them. I believe they were
okay.
towards the bottom of that top 10. But yes, they made the list too. I just forgot to mention Tennessee in that.
But they weren't the top of the top list. Got it. Okay.
Correct.
Makes
Yes.
sense. So, yeah, so I like it's not like all of a sudden Tennessee is out here whining and complaining that they can't outspend everybody. Okay, that's not what's happening here. And by the way, I find it incredibly interesting that Vanderbilt is not mentioned like this because aren't they a state school as well?
Yes. So in the law here, it's Tennessee Senate Bill number 536. It does pave the way for University of Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and Memphis, and it says etc. But those are the three like state schools, the big name ones. So it does protect them, but also I don't know the exact rules behind all of it, but Vanderbilt is a little bit different as well with them being a private university.
Mhm.
They can't exactly do the NIL the same way that a school like Tennessee or Ohio State, being a public university, can do. But obviously, they still have their ways of doing NIL. So that's why you're not hearing Vanderbilt mentioned as much about it, just because of that. I mean, Tennessee is the big name school
Right.
uh, in the state. But along with that, as I mentioned, the NIL rules being just slightly different for Vanderbilt with them being a private university.
Yeah. It's incredible. This is just incredibly interesting. But do you agree, and I think you do based off of what you said earlier and a couple statements ago, guardrails do need to be put in place.
Yes, they absolutely need to be put in place. Now, what will those guardrails be? And will they be legal? Can they be legally binding? That's the question. That's how all of this started anyway, was somebody finally challenged the NCAA saying, hey, this, not being able to pay athletes thing, it's not actually legal. So we're going to sue you and we're going to win. And all of a sudden, everything opened up and it did become the Wild West. But there was still certain things that they had control over until, once again, Tennessee being at the forefront of it, challenged that again with the Nico situation. And now we're in a situation that we are right now where there is no rules. So, yes, something needs to be put into place, but what that is going to be, that's still beyond me right now.
Well, I can tell you this much: when those guardrails are put in place, we'll be here to talk about it. We'll probably have Michael back on to talk about it because I'm sure when that happens, Tennessee will have something to say.
That's exactly right. And it's amazing the difference that a university can be in as far as a mental state and a physical state, just over the span of a few years. Because when you look back in the late 2010s and even the COVID year of 2020, we had a totally different staff that was over everything. Had a different athletic director, different head coach for football, different president might have been the same, but they finally sat down because you had boosters going into this NIL that did not want to give money because of the state of the program as a whole. So finally, they sat down and basically drew out a guideline of what they wanted to do. Went out and made a roll of the dice hire with Danny White that has turned out to be a home run hire, and him working together with Chancellor Plowman and President Boyd with the university. Tennessee has got one of the healthiest athletic departments in the country. And Danny White is such a visionary when it comes to planning for the future. He had already, before NIL got to where it was, he had already planned out this whole NIL thing with Nico. Now, it wasn't necessarily with Nico, but he knew that somebody was going to come around, that they were going to end up spending that money on them. And they had the lawsuit already ready to go. So as soon as the NCAA said something, here you go, we're ready for you. And I feel like whenever it comes to this point that we're talking about where there is guidelines put in place, he's going to have a plan ready for it, which is why Tennessee has been at the forefront of a lot of these conversations.
Good to know, Michael. Tell everybody where they can find the Vol Fanatics.
You can find us on YouTube, as Eric just mentioned, at Vol Fanatics Show. You can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. You can also find us at our website. Big shout out to Eric for helping us out getting that set up. It is volfanatics.com. And then, of course, you can find us here at the College Huddle, where Eric and I, maybe not once a month, but once every couple of months, we're probably going to get together and talk about something.
Probably. I enjoy talking to you, Michael, so it's going to happen, my man. But I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for jumping on. Let us know what you think about what we think down in the comment section below. We appreciate the feedback. We appreciate everybody jumping on this conversation. That'll help this video reach more people, much like yourself, who enjoy college football, and we appreciate that very much. And again, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so you get notified whenever we drop new content. And by all means, please hit the like button. That helps us out as well. Till next time, go Vols.
Go Vols.